It is my pleasure to now introduce Ryan Sharpson. He is our SME. Ryan has 20 plus years of telecom field installation and maintenance experience. He's a veteran instructor at Global Knowledge, leading courses that include Palo Alto Networks, SonicWall, and Avaya Technologies. He receives very high marks from customers for his teaching style and product knowledge. He's our lead subject matter expert when we require integration and lab design for new courses and lab environment updates. Ryan is based out of the great city of Dallas, Texas. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Ryan.
Well, thank you, Kevin, and thanks for having me. Thank you to all of you for spending a little time with us today. Our PAN-OS presentation, Palo Alto Networks, security everywhere. With today's business climate, secure remote access is the name of the game. It has never been more vital. Almost overnight, many of our organizations had to transform into what we are now using as a new normal, mobile, everybody work from home. And Palo Alto Networks continues to strive toward that goal, securing network applications so that users can do their work from home securely and safely. The snippet you'll see today are just a few slides from the introduction in our Palo Alto Networks Firewall Essentials training course, essentially introducing administrators and network personnel to the PAN-OS. So this introduction will outline some of the high-level, a 50,000-foot overview, such as the security platform offered by PAN-OS. This continues to grow, and the next generation technologies built into the PAN-OS operating systems continues to develop and gain traction in the market. We talk about something we call the architecture of the firewall itself. We'll give you an understanding of how does the PAN-OS firewall measure up against my previous, what I call Firewall X, my previous generation of security technologies. We'll examine how the PAN-OS architecture measures up. We'll also change an old idealistic strategy, many times used in the past. Certain segments of our network were given, let's call it, default trust. PAN-OS looks at things in a different way, and we structure the environment to what I would call more closely would rely on or would relate to never trust, always verify. So we'll talk about that. And then, of course, the firewalls available from the small to the largest of our platform architecture. So as we begin, I'll just describe what we refer to in the training as a cyber-attack lifecycle. Oftentimes, when a breach or any type of incident has occurred, there were likely stages leading up to, events leading up to, or activities preparing for that breach. And that's just one example, but you see here that from the reconnaissance where an unauthorized attempt at your network may just be collecting ports. It may be trying to flood your resources, but that's an initial stage. And cyber attacks oftentimes morph through various stages. The idea here is pretty simple. If your firewall is able to react to more than one of these stages, we have a more complete protection. We can offer a protection against attack attempts, network breaches, even if it might have initiated outside the firewall. One of the examples I like to talk about there is when a user takes their corporate asset on vacation, the corporate firewall there in your data center could not be held responsible many times if a user's laptop on a wireless network in a foreign country, as an example, might be compromised. Well, once that asset comes back into the network, our PAN-OS now is not helpless. We'll describe how we can utilize certain behaviors and activities that can be useful to the firewall in protecting even that network asset. The platform is a growing playing field, and what I tell the folks in the training class is our focus is here in the bottom left corner where the network security enforcement takes place. But if you look at this slide and you understand what we are seeing here in the big picture, the firewall does not work alone. There are endpoint protection elements that can go with that corporate asset. There are cloud-based strategies and architectures for inter-office communication. There is what I call a development, this is a development atmosphere. We call the application framework. This is a integration environment where the greatest minds in our generation are continuously developing new applications, new tools, and incorporating those into our users' activities throughout the day. Obviously, that playing field, that lab or that integration environment has several sources of new information, constant development. Palo Alto Networks engineers themselves create new application signatures. An example there might be if Facebook, which is a very important tool in a lot of the organizations, if Facebook creates a brand new tool for its users, the Palo Alto Networks engineers will create a signature to identify or label the communication with that Facebook tool. An example might be the Facebook chat. So those tools now being developed are certainly constantly changing landscape. People that are partners with Palo Alto Networks contribute. And of course, customers in their own environment may create custom signature capabilities. All of this feeds into the tools and capabilities of the PAN-OS. When traffic can be labeled, traffic can be controlled. Now, our operating system, in this case, consists of itself and lots of other components. Panorama is a management and reporting tool that can be used to deploy and manage firewalls at scale. So if you have a corporation with 500 firewalls, the Panorama server can be used to deploy and control and configure in one fell swoop policies out to those 500 firewalls. Another tool is an Aperture. It is a software as a service element. More and more users are interacting with Salesforce, Google tools, cloud-based software. And that software then becomes a manageable component. Obviously, remote connection is important. The Global Protect VPN is a client-based VPN solution. Autofocus is, again, another extension of the PAN-OS, and this is a threat intelligence database. So another example of the firewall tapping into a worldwide database of intelligence. Our architecture here is pretty important because of the past UTM devices many administrators are used to. The single pass parallel process, for us, I use an analogy that is pretty straightforward. I say, imagine a pit crew on a race team. When the packet pulls into the pit, all of the services are applied, the tires, the gas, and the windshield, and the adjustments. Well, for us, that single pass means we're going to analyze the payload of that traffic. Literally, layer 7 analysis can identify Facebook traffic from YouTube traffic. In the past, devices processed packets one by one, service by service, and that caused delay. With our single pass parallel process, when the packet is pulled off of the wire, those processes take place in parallel. And my silly analogy I use, imagine if your favorite race car driver was in the lead and pulled into the pit and said, just give me a right front tire. Then I'm going to do another lap and I'm going to come back in and you can give me a left front tire. Well, as inefficient as that sounds, the process in old firewall technology very closely resembled that. We apply all of our specific processes in the first pass. And that's an important piece. Single pass parallel process is how the PAN OS can be efficient with throughput and effective with security. The players involved here are the data plane and the control plane. And so when we talk to students and admins, the control plane is what I reference as the brain, responsible for configuration adjustments and logs and just the management of the device. However, the data plane is the arms and legs, actually responsible for doing the networking, source IP lookups, then actually applying the enforcement of our security rules, matching on a application and looking for a policy rule and the enforcement object associated with it. We also have a very sophisticated signature engine for credit card numbers, social security numbers, etc. So the single pass parallel process, again, is the reason for the effectiveness and speed of the firewall. Our trust model is really interesting. Obviously, focus has been largely kept on the perimeter. Well, that's what I was talking about earlier, where some segments of the network have been completely missed. So let's take a look at what this, now our perimeter is certainly important, but take a look at the branch offices. Take a look at our mobile users. What about those elements? With a classic site-to-site VPN or a user VPN with Global Protect, our users and networks are constantly connected and protected. Even our data center here, we have internal server resources, and the internal server resources need protection. So when we talk about traffic entering or leaving our network, which is standard, we call that north-south traffic, and it's a very important consideration. However, traffic between these server farms internally in our data center, what about the analysis of that traffic? We call that east-west traffic, and with our zero trust placement of all the firewalls, as you see here, we have embedded security strategically placed so that all of the network traffic is analyzed. A little review back to our life cycle. Remember, our feature set is robust, and these various features have implementation impact on the various stages of our life cycle. Now, finally, we have something for every environment. The small office, home office offerings from our little 200 series, all the way through the mid-level series and our, what I call beast mode, 7,000 multi-slot chassis. These are likely very sophisticated and should be positioned and engineered to support the number of users and applications in the feature set. We also offer some hardware that can serve as a panorama device. That panorama device can, again, manage multitude of firewalls all at once. And we also communicate with a contributing member of the family here we call Wildfire. If a user downloads a file that seems innocent, the Wildfire cloud can analyze that traffic, and I call that kind of a sandbox in the cloud where the mad scientists work hard in the evil laboratory to analyze files. And once those files are analyzed, to come back with a verdict. So you see there's a lot of hardware available. We also offer VMs, certainly sized appropriately for your network. The virtual machines can offer the same line of security features with a smaller footprint. We can also take a single physical firewall and create an administrative boundary, dissecting the actual physical resources here and assigning them, coordinating them with a virtual firewall for multiple customers or departments, creating a little boundary for administration and, of course, access to the resources. So Palo Alto Networks, in a nutshell, is in a perfect position to continue to secure remote communication and provide unified threat type protection in a next generation function. So I hope that those are some topics that might tweak your interest. And I certainly have enjoyed sharing a few tidbits of information. Now I'll turn it back over to Kevin. If there's any questions, I would love to talk with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Ryan. I'm looking through the chat. Looks like nothing has been popped in there as of yet. So everyone, if you have a question, feel free to place that in the chat and we will answer that for you. We do have a little bit of time left in this webinar, so we definitely want to take advantage of Ryan's expertise. So if any questions pop up, let us know. So while we are waiting for questions to come through, we wanted to let you know that if this topic intrigued you a little bit, we do have the full portfolio of classes from Palo Alto Networks that we can help you get skilled up and also prepared for certification exams if that's your goal. So some of the classes that we have in our portfolio, the major one that kicks everything off is the Essentials Configuration and Management course. That's the class that this presentation is built off of. So if you want to dive deeper into this basic admin skills, then by all means, go ahead and take a look at that class on our Global Knowledge website, or contact your Global Knowledge account manager and we can have a further conversation on that. Additional classes beyond the essentials, we do have classes covering troubleshooting, classes covering the panorama device that Ryan mentioned that helps manage firewalls at scale. And in addition, the threat prevention features, we have a class that covers that. So we do have a full round of classes that help build up your skills to make you a more productive individual. So before we move on, let's see, I do see a question that popped up. Ryan, do I need to install a hard firewall in my home office?
Not necessarily. If you have the appropriate virtual environment set up, our VM firewalls are extraordinarily capable. And that again depends on, you'd need appropriate hypervisor, the VMware environment, or certainly there's Amazon offerings, but a hardware firewall is certainly not a requirement just based on feature set alone, certainly.
Okay, very good. Glisten, I hope that answers your question. We definitely can welcome any further questions if you have them. Otherwise, we do have a few other housekeeping items that we want to address before we conclude this webinar. So I'll jump into that. So as a Benefit for you to attending this webinar, we are going to be providing you a promotion code. So Ryan, you want to go to the next slide? So we are offering 25% off your next Global Knowledge Delivered class. So if you want to take advantage of that, you can, if you're in the US, you can use webinar 25, or if you're in Canada, CA webinar 25, and apply that at time of checkout, or provide that to your Global Knowledge account manager, and they will get that discount provided to you as a thanks for you for attending this webinar. So I do see another question here. Is there a lab version of Palo Alto Firewall? So Ryan, do you think that means, I'm not sure how to best answer that one.
I think the answer is yes, and it would depend on who your distributor is, but certainly you can acquire. It sounds like to me what that question is, can I get a, it would be a virtual VM, a virtual machine, and could I use that as kind of a lab development type tool? Absolutely. And certainly that would come through a distributor or a partner, but yes, they certainly have those readily available.
Awesome, thanks for answering that. And then the last bit that I have from my end is we definitely thank you for joining, and be sure to continue to visit the Global Knowledge website, where you can access additional free resources like technical articles, white papers, and webinars. Check out our new product, which is the Polaris, is a unlimited subscription to a number of different technology classes. Other than that, we thank you for your time, and we definitely appreciate your business, and we welcome to see you again in class very soon. Thanks, Ryan, for your time.
Okay, sir. I see a couple of questions here. I'll just keep the meeting open,
sorry.
and I'll answer
sorry about
them.
that. Yeah, I didn't scroll down.
That's okay. They actually are going to take a little typing. So thanks for spending time with us, folks. I'm just going to go silent, and I'll answer each question individually. So thanks a heck of a lot, everybody, and have a good rest of your week.